The massive throne room of the Zephyrian Empire stretched out like a golden canyon. Emperor Valdris sat on his crystal seat, his blue-scaled fingers tapping against the armrests. Before him, holographic star maps showed thousands of worlds under his control. Each dot represented millions of beings who bowed to his will. "Your Majesty." General Thaxon stepped forward, his armor clanking on the polished floor. "We have a problem in Sector 7. Valdris turned his yellow eyes toward the general. "What kind of problem?" "A new species, sire. They call themselves humans. They have spread to 12 worlds without asking permission." The Emperor's tail flicked with annoyance. For 3,000 years, his empire had ruled this part of the galaxy. Every species learned the same lesson. Ask permission first, or face the consequences. "Show me," he commanded. The star map zoomed in on a small yellow star. Around it spun several planets, including a blue and green world covered in swirling clouds. "They come from this planet called Earth," Thaxon explained. "Our scouts say they are primitive. They still use metal ships and chemical rockets. No energy shields. No plasma weapons. How many of them are there?" "About 8 billion on their home world. Maybe 50 million spread across their colonies." Valdris laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 50 million? Our standard fleet carries more soldiers than that." "Yes, sire. Should we send Admiral Korith?" "Perfect. Send the 3rd Intimidation Fleet. 200 ships should be more than enough to make them understand." Admiral Korith received his orders 3 days later. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Times, Endless Victory *, watching his fleet arrange itself around him. 200 massive ships hung in space like deadly monuments. Each one was the size of a small city, covered in weapon ports that could burn planets to ash. "Admiral," his second-in-command reported, "the fleet is in position. All ships ready for hyperspace jump." Korith nodded. This would be his 47th intimidation mission. Not once had a species refused to surrender after seeing his fleet. The sight of so much power always broke their will to fight. Begin jump sequence. Destination: Earth system. Space twisted around the fleet. Stars became lines of light, then vanished entirely. When normal space returned, they floated at the edge of a solar system. The 3rd planet from the sun glowed blue and white in the distance. "Scanners show several space stations and mining operations," a technician reported. "Primitive designs. No significant weapons detected." "Good. Begin the Wall of Inevitability formation." The 200 ships spread out in a perfect line between the humans and their sun. It was a sight that had made entire civilizations weep in despair. The message was clear. "We are between you and the light of your star. Submit or die in darkness." "Open communication channels to all human settlements," Korith ordered. "Time to deliver the ultimatum." Every human radio, television, and computer screen in the system suddenly showed the same image. Admiral Korith appeared, his reptilian features stern and commanding. Behind him, weapon displays showed the destructive power of his fleet. "Primitive species of Earth." His voice echoed across space. "You have violated Imperial law by expanding without permission. I am Admiral Korith of the 3rd Imperial Intimidation Fleet. You now face the combined might of 200 warships, each capable of destroying your cities." The Admiral paused, letting the weight of his words settle. This was usually when the begging started. "You have one rotation of your planet to make your choice. Surrender completely. Accept status as vassals of the Empire. Prepare your population for relocation to designated worlds. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your species." He gestured to his weapons officer. A beam of pure energy lanced out from the flagship, striking a large asteroid. The rock exploded in a flash of light and debris. "This demonstration shows our power. Do not test our patience. One day, humans, choose wisely." The transmission ended. On Earth, President Martinez sat in an emergency meeting with the heads of every major nation. Military commanders filled screens around the room. Everyone waited for someone to speak first. Finally, General Patterson from the United Earth Defense Force broke the silence. "Well," she said slowly, "that was certainly dramatic." Secretary Chen from the Chinese Republic leaned forward. "Their ships are impressive. But did anyone else notice they look like flying cathedrals?" "More like space pyramids," laughed the Brazilian representative. "Very shiny space pyramids." President Martinez rubbed his forehead. "People, we're talking about an alien invasion fleet." "Are we, though?" asked Dr. Sarah Chen, the xenobiologist. "Because that felt more like a really elaborate school play. Did you hear that speech? Choose wisely, and all that dramatic pausing." The room fell quiet as everyone considered this. "The real question," General Patterson said, "is what do we do about it?" "Have they actually attacked anything yet?" asked Martinez. "No, sir. They just blew up an asteroid and gave us a deadline." "So, they're trying to scare us into surrendering without a fight?" "That appears to be their strategy, yes." Martinez looked around the room. "And how do we feel about that?" A slow smile spread across Dr. Chen's face. "Honestly, sir, I think they picked the wrong species to try and intimidate." The president raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "Sir, we're the species that invented bungee jumping. We're the species that invented Narration, base jumping, free climbing, storm chasing, and professional wrestling. We pay money to be scared. We invented horror movies for entertainment. These aliens think they can frighten us into submission?" General Patterson started chuckling. "She has a point. My nephew would probably want to take a selfie with their ships." "So what's our response?" Martinez asked. Dr. Chen stood up. "With your permission, sir, I'd like to be the one to answer them." "What did you have in mind?" Her grin grew wider. "Something they definitely won't expect." Admiral Korith waited on his bridge for the humans to respond. His communications officer monitored all frequencies, ready to receive their surrender message. The Admiral had seen this moment thousands of times. First came silence. Then, frantic military chatter. Finally, a broken leader would appear on screen, begging for mercy. "Sir," the communications officer said, "we're receiving a response from Earth." "Put it on the main screen." The view screen flickered to life, showing a human woman with short black hair and kind eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with some kind of badge. Behind her, other humans moved around what looked like a control room. "Greetings, Admiral Koreth," she said with a warm smile. "I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, speaking for Earth and all human colonies. Thank you for your message." Koreth frowned. The human seemed completely calm. Where was the fear? Where were the tears? "We've given careful consideration to your generous offer," Dr. Chen continued, "and I'm afraid we'll have to decline." Several bridge officers looked at each other in confusion. Decline? Species didn't decline ultimatums from the Imperial fleet. Furthermore, the human woman went on, "I wanted to let you know that your impressive demonstration has been quite popular here on Earth. The asteroid explosion has been viewed over 2 billion times in the last 3 hours. People are calling it pretty cool and a decent light show." Admiral Koreth's jaw dropped open. His destruction demonstration was being treated like entertainment? Dr. Chen glanced at something off-screen. "Oh, and my nephew Tommy wanted me to tell you that your ships look awesome, but kind of like the bad guys from his favorite space movie. He's 8 years old. He also wants to know if you have any smaller ships that aren't quite so, quote, trying so hard to look scary." The Admiral felt heat rising in his scaled cheeks. A human child was mocking his fleet? "Human," he managed to say. "You do not seem to understand the situation. This is not a negotiation. This is surrender or death." "Oh, we understand perfectly, Doctor." Chen replied cheerfully. You want us to give up our freedom, leave our homes, and become your servants. We've talked it over and decided that sounds terrible. So thanks. But no thanks. Behind her, the Admiral could hear other humans laughing and talking. Someone called out, "Tell them about the memes." Dr. Chen's smile grew bigger. Actually, your arrival has been quite the boost for our entertainment industry. Earth's social networks have exploded with creative content about your visit. Would you like to see some examples? Before Karith could respond, images flashed across his screen. Human text and pictures that made no sense to him. But he could hear the laughter in the background. This one shows your ship formation with the caption, "When you're trying to look intimidating, but you just look like you're overcompensating." Doctor, Chen explained. This one says, "Point of view. You're a space empire that's never met humans before." Oh, and this one is particularly popular. It's your ships with the text, "Tell me you've never had a real fight. Without telling me, you've never had a real fight." Korith's hands clenched into fists. You dare mock the Imperial fleet? We're not mocking you, Dr. Chen said gently. We're just not impressed. Your ships are very large and shiny, but size isn't everything. Also, your formation is quite predictable. My military advisors say it looks like something from a textbook. Enough, Karith roared. You have insulted the Empire for the last time. I will demonstrate the consequences of your arrogance. Oh good, Doctor, Chen said, clapping her hands together. We were hoping for another light show. The first one was lovely, but people are asking for something with more colors this time. The Admiral stared at her. Was this human insane? You want more destruction? Well, if you're going to do it anyway, we might as well enjoy it. Earth's entertainment networks are standing by to broadcast whatever you'd like to show us. I should warn you, though, our audience is quite demanding. The last alien invasion movie that came out was pretty disappointing, so you'll want to really bring your best effort. Karith turned to his weapons officer. Target the human mining station in the asteroid belt. Full power. Sir, that's a civilian target. Do it. Brilliant beams of energy reached across space, striking the small human outpost. The station exploded in a spectacular ball of fire and metal. On his screen, Dr. Chen watched the destruction with interest. Ooh, that was much better. The explosion had nice symmetry, and I loved the way the debris spread out. Very cinematic. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10? Korith sputtered. Well, it was a bit one-sided, don't you think? The real entertainment comes from watching someone fight back. Speaking of which, you should probably know that our defense fleet is on its way to meet you. Your defense fleet? Korith laughed harshly. My scouts report that you have perhaps 30 ships total. Ancient vessels with primitive weapons. 37 ships. Actually, Dr. Chen corrected. And you're right. They are quite old. Most of them are converted cargo haulers and passenger ships. Nothing fancy at all. Then you are sending them to die. Maybe, Dr. Chen shrugged. Or, maybe you haven't been paying attention to what kind of species you're dealing with. Admiral, let me ask you something. When your empire encounters a new species, what's the first thing you do? We assess their threat level. Right. And what threat level did you assign to humanity? Korith hesitated. Minimal. You are a primitive species with limited technology. I see. And in all your experience, Admiral, how many minimal threat species have ever responded to your ultimatums with laughter? The question hung in the air. Around Korith's bridge, his officers looked uncomfortable. None, he admitted. Exactly, Dr. Chen said softly. So maybe, just maybe, you've made a mistake in your assessment. Before Korith could respond, his sensor officer called out urgently. Admiral, ships approaching from Earth. It's the human fleet. On screen. The image of Dr. Chen was replaced by a tactical display. 37 human ships approached in loose formation. They moved erratically, not in the precise patterns of a military force. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "their ships are unusual. They appear to be heavily modified civilian vessels. Some of them have writing painted on their hulls." "What kind of writing?" "Names, sir. Lucky Strike, no regrets, hold my beer, and absolutely no refunds." Koreth stared at the display. What kind of military force named their ships things like, "hold my beer"? Dr. Chen's voice came back over the communications channel. "Admiral, I should probably mention something important before this gets started." "What?" "Those aren't military ships. They're volunteers." "Volunteers?" "When word got out about your ultimatum, we had more people wanting to join the fight than we had ships to put them in. These crews are teachers, mechanics, farmers, shop owners, people who have never been in a space battle before." Karith felt a chill run down his spine. "Then why are they here?" Dr. Chen's smile was no longer warm. It was something else entirely. "Because, Admiral, you made the mistake of threatening our home." The first battle happened at Kepler Station, humanity's newest mining colony. Admiral Koreth decided to make an example of the small outpost. 50 of his finest ships moved toward the station while the rest of his fleet watched from a distance. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "the human defense ships are moving to intercept." On the view screen, 12 human vessels approached the Zephyrian formation. They were exactly as Dr. Chen had described, old cargo ships and passenger vessels covered in strange markings and crude modifications. "They're outnumbered 4-1, Koreth observed. "This will be over quickly." The lead human ship opened a communication channel. A man's voice crackled through. Rough and cheerful. "Zephyrian ships. This is Captain Rodriguez, aboard the Time's rusty, but trusty, Asterisk. Y'all picked a fine day for a fight." Koreth frowned. The human sounded. "Excited? Human vessel, you are severely outgunned. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." "Death?" Rodriguez laughed. "Son, I've been married for 30 years, raised 4 teenagers, and worked construction in Texas heat. Death don't scare me. What scares me is my wife finding out I backed down from a fight." The other human ships chimed in over the open channel. Asterisk Lucky Strike Times ready for action, Cap'n. Asterisk. No regrets. Times standing by. Let's show these boys how we party. Asterisk Sweet Caroline Times reporting in. My grandkids are watching this on the news. Koreth had never heard anything like it. Enemy pilots chatting casually before battle, talking about their families, making jokes. Where was the military discipline? Where was the fear? "Begin attack," he ordered his fleet. Plasma beams lanced out from the Zephyrian ships, lighting up space in deadly colors. The human vessels scattered in all directions, moving in ways that made no tactical sense. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "the humans are not following any recognizable combat pattern. Their movements appear random." "Random movements are the sign of panic," Koreth said. "Press the attack." But something was wrong. The human ships weren't panicking. They were having fun. Over the communication channel, Captain Rodriguez's voice rang out. "Woo! Did you see that? That plasma bolt missed me by maybe 10 feet. Maria, honey, if you're watching this, I'm having the time of my life." Another human pilot chimed in. "Rodriguez, you crazy fool, watch this." The ship called Times, Lucky Strike Times, suddenly accelerated directly toward a Zephyrian destroyer. Instead of firing its weapons, it rammed straight into the enemy's shields at full speed. "Suicide attack," someone on Koreth's bridge shouted. But the human ship bounced off the energy shields like a rubber ball. It spun wildly through space, while its pilot whooped with joy. Holy cow! Did everyone see that? I think I broke my artificial gravity. Everything's floating. This is awesome. Asterisk, lucky strike, time somehow righted itself and came around for another pass. He's doing it again, the tactical officer said in disbelief. The human ship slammed into another Zephyrian vessel, bounced off, spun around, and its pilot laughed like a maniac. Better than any roller coaster. Who wants to try this? 3 more human ships immediately attempted the same maneuver. Koreth watched in growing confusion as the battle continued. The humans were clearly outmatched. Their weapons barely scratched Zephyrian armor. Their ships were old and slow. But they kept fighting with an enthusiasm that defied explanation. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're intercepting transmissions from Earth. The humans are broadcasting this battle live." "What?" "It appears to be some kind of entertainment program. There are commentators describing the action." Koreth listened in horror as Earth voices filled his bridge. "And there goes the Times, sweet Caroline Times, with another impossible maneuver. I don't know how Captain Williams keeps pulling these stunts. Rodriguez just took a direct hit to his cargo bay, but he's still flying. The man's practically indestructible." Folks, if you're just joining us, you're watching live coverage of humanity's first space battle. And let me tell you, our boys and girls out there are putting on quite a show. They're treating this like a sporting event. Koreth whispered. The battle raged for 2 more hours. The humans lost 7 ships, but every time one exploded, its crew seemed to go out with laughter rather than screams. When the Times No Regrets Times finally took too much damage to continue fighting, its captain broadcast a final message. "Well, folks, this is it for the Times No Regrets asterisk. Reactors about to blow. Want everyone to know this was the best damn day of my life. Tell my kids their old man went out in style. Rodriguez, don't let these fancy boys get the best of you." The ship exploded in a brilliant flash. On the Zephyrian bridge, officers stared in stunned silence. "Sir," the tactical officer said quietly, "the remaining human ships are singing." It was true. The 5 surviving human vessels were broadcasting an old Earth song, their crews singing together as they continued to fight. Asterisk, sweet Caroline. Ba ba ba. Good times never seem so good. Asterisk. What kind of warriors sing during battle? Koreth demanded. His question was answered when Captain Rodriguez's ship, barely holding together, made one final run at the Zephyrian flagship. "This one's for the Times No Regrets asterisk," Rodriguez shouted. "Remember the Alamo!" The Times, rusty but trusty Times, slammed into the flagship's shields with everything it had left. The collision did no real damage, but Koreth felt his massive ship shake from the impact. "He's hailing us," the communications officer reported. On screen, Captain Rodriguez appeared, his face bloody, his ship's bridge filled with smoke and sparks. But he was grinning. "Not bad for a first try," he said. "Y'all put up a good fight." "A good fight?" Koreth sputtered. "We destroyed most of your fleet." "Yeah, but did you see the size of the explosion when the Times No Regrets Times went up? Beautiful. And Tommy managed to ram 3 of your ships before his reactor gave out. Kids got style. Your people are dead." "Yep. And they died doing exactly what they wanted to do. Can you say the same about your people, Admiral?" The question hit Koreth like a physical blow. He looked around his bridge at his officers' faces. They looked confused, disturbed, even frightened. "This is not how war is supposed to work," he muttered. "Maybe that's your problem," Rodriguez said gently. "Y'all have been fighting the same kind of war for so long. You forgot there are other ways to do it." Before Koreth could respond, his sensor officer called out in alarm. "Admiral, new contacts approaching. It's another human fleet." "How many ships?" 43, sir. And they're broadcasting something." "Put it on screen." A new human face appeared, a middle-aged woman with fierce eyes and graying hair. "Zephyrian Fleet. This is Admiral Patricia Santos, of the Earth Defense Force. I understand you just finished fighting some of our civilian volunteers. Your civilians fought well, Korath found himself saying. They always do. Now you get to see what our actual military can do. Behind Admiral Santos, the largest human fleet yet assembled, moved into attack formation. These ships looked different, sleeker, more dangerous, clearly built for war. Admiral Korath, Santos continued, I want you to understand something. Those people you just killed weren't soldiers. They were shopkeepers and mechanics and farmers. They volunteered because they believed in something worth fighting for. And now, Santos smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Now you've made it personal. Admiral Santos wasted no time with speeches or ultimatums. Her fleet struck fast and hard, using tactics that made Korath's head spin. The human military ships moved like wolves, hunting in coordinated packs but breaking formation whenever it suited them. Sir, his tactical officer reported, their attack pattern is impossible to predict. How can they coordinate without proper formation discipline? Unknown, sir. They seem to communicate constantly with each other, but not through normal military channels. They're using something they call battle chat. Korath listened to the intercepted human communications in growing bewilderment. Santos to all ships, let's try the Wisconsin cheese grater on their left flank. Copy that, Admiral. Asterisk. Defiant times and times. Courage times. Moving to position. Asterisk New Tokyo times here. Requesting permission to try that crazy thing Rodriguez did earlier. Negative. Asterisk. New Tokyo asterisk. Save the ramming for when we really need it. Asterisk Thunderchild times reporting. We've got 3 enemy ships focusing fire on us. This is actually pretty fun. Asterisk Thunderchild asterisk. You are not supposed to be having fun during combat. Sorry, Admiral, but have you seen these enemy ships explode? They make the prettiest colors. What kind of military force is this? Korath asked no one in particular. The answer came when Admiral Santos hailed him directly. Admiral Korath, I thought you should know something about human military doctrine. What is that? We don't really have one. Every captain in my fleet is encouraged to think for themselves. We train them to be creative, adaptable, and most importantly, to never give up. As if to prove her point, a human destroyer called Times Indomitable Times found itself surrounded by 6 Zephyrian ships. Instead of trying to escape, its captain opened fire in all directions while broadcasting over all frequencies. This is Captain Chen of the Times Indomitable asterisk. If anyone wants to make bets on how many enemy ships I can take down with me, now's your chance. Chen, you're supposed to retreat when outnumbered, Santos scolded. Retreat? Admiral, my ship's name is Times Indomitable asterisk. That means I can't give up even if I want to. It's right there in the name. The Times, Indomitable Times, somehow managed to destroy 2 Zephyrian vessels before finally exploding. Its last transmission was Captain Chen, singing off-key. I did it. My. Why? Korath realized his fleet was losing this battle, not because they were outgunned, but because they couldn't understand what they were fighting against. Sir, his communications officer said urgently, we're receiving a priority message from the Emperor himself. Emperor Valdris appeared on the main screen, his scaled features tight with anger. Admiral, I am watching this battle through our surveillance drones. What is happening out there? Your Majesty, the humans are. Unusual. Unusual? You have 200 ships against fewer than 50 human vessels, and you're losing. Sir, their tactics make no sense. They fight like individuals but coordinate like a hive mind. They sacrifice their ships, but seem to enjoy doing it. Their crews volunteer for suicide missions and laugh while doing it. Are you telling me, the Emperor said slowly, that this primitive species is defeating our finest fleet through the power of enthusiasm? I don't know how else to explain it, Your Majesty. At that moment, another human ship rammed directly into a Zephyrian dreadnought. But this time, the human vessel somehow survived the collision. Its captain immediately hailed the enemy ship. Knock knock. Anybody home in there? Your shields are pretty tough, but I think I just found a weak spot. How is that ship still intact? Valdris demanded. Unknown, sire. Their technology is primitive, but they modify their ships in ways our engineers say are impossible. Impossible how? Before Karith could answer, his sensor officer reported something that made his blood run cold. Sir, the human ship that just rammed us appears to be boarding the dreadnought times Sovereign's Will asterisk. Boarding? How? They attached some kind of cutting device to the hull. They're burning through our armor. On his screen, Koreth watched in horror as human soldiers in simple spacesuits cut their way into one of his most powerful ships. The humans moved with practiced efficiency, but also with an excitement that was disturbing to witness. Asterisk, New Boston Times, boarding party to all ships. A cheerful voice reported. We're inside the enemy vessel. It's bigger than my hometown. We could have a parade in these corridors. Focus on your mission, Admiral Santos reminded them. Right, sorry, Admiral. Proceeding to engine room. Have to say, though, the Zephyrians really like their decorative armor. Very shiny. Very impractical. Within an hour, the boarding party had seized control of the Time's Sovereign's Will asterisk, but instead of using it as a weapon, they did something unprecedented. Admiral Santos, this is Lieutenant Murphy aboard the captured Zephyrian ship. We've secured the vessel, but there's something you need to know. What is it, Lieutenant? The Zephyrian crew didn't fight very hard once we got inside. They seemed more confused than angry. I think they've never had anyone board their ships before. What did you do with the prisoners? Well, that's the thing, ma'am. Sergeant Williams started showing them how our equipment works, and now they're asking questions about human engineering. They seem really interested in our ship modifications. Emperor Valdris, still listening to the communications, turned to his advisors. Did that human just say our soldiers are asking them for engineering advice? Admiral Koreth nodded grimly. Your Majesty, I'm beginning to think we seriously underestimated this species. The battle continued for several more hours, but it was clear the tide had turned. Human ships swarmed the Zephyrian fleet like angry wasps, striking fast and disappearing before return fire could find them. More disturbing than the tactical defeat was what Koreth saw happening to his own people. Zephyrian officers watched human tactics with growing interest rather than anger. Some even began suggesting modifications to their own strategies based on what they observed. Sir, his tactical officer said quietly, the humans are requesting a temporary ceasefire to rescue survivors from both sides. Both sides? Yes, sir. They want to save Zephyrian crews as well as their own people. Why would they do that? The answer came from Admiral Santos herself. Admiral Koreth, we don't like unnecessary death. Your people fought well. Even if your cause is wrong, we'd rather save lives than take them. Even enemy lives? Especially enemy lives. Dead enemies can't become friends later. Emperor Valdris stared at the screen in disbelief. They want to rescue our people? It appears so, Your Majesty. Why? Admiral Koreth had no answer. In 3,000 years of imperial expansion, no enemy species had ever tried to rescue Zephyrian survivors. The concept was completely foreign. Admiral Santos, Koreth found himself saying, you have won this battle. What are your terms? Terms? We don't want to conquer you. Admiral, we just want you to leave our space and let us live in peace. That's all? That's all. Though I have to ask, why did your empire think it was a good idea to try intimidating a species you'd never fought before? And clues. Koreth considered the question seriously. Because intimidation has always worked before. Maybe, Santos said gently. It worked because you were intimidating the wrong kind of species. What kind of species are humans then? Santos smiled. Admiral, we're the kind of species that colonized a planet where almost everything was trying to kill us, and we called it home. We're the kind of species that looks at a mountain and thinks, I wonder what's on the other side. We're the kind of species that invented the phrase, hold my beer, and watch this. I don't understand that phrase. It means we do dangerous things for fun, Admiral. You can't intimidate people who consider danger a form of entertainment. As if to prove her point, a human salvage crew rescuing Zephyrian survivors was heard asking their former enemies, So, how do you guys make your ships this shiny? And do you have any extreme sports in your empire? Because if not, we should totally introduce you to bungee jumping. Emperor Valdris paced in his throne room, his advisors watching nervously. The defeat at Earth had shaken the Empire to its core. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Imperial fleet had been beaten by an inferior force. How did this happen? He demanded. How did a primitive species defeat our finest admiral? General Thaxon cleared his throat carefully. Your Majesty, our intelligence reports suggest we may have misunderstood the nature of humanity. Explain. They don't think like us, sire. When faced with overwhelming force, most species calculate the odds and surrender to save lives. Humans seem to calculate the odds and get excited. That makes no sense. No, sire. It doesn't. The Emperor stopped pacing. I want to speak with Admiral Koreth personally. Bring me a full report on these humans. Several hours later, Admiral Koreth stood before the Emperor. His usually perfect uniform was rumpled, and his scales had lost their luster. The defeat had affected him deeply. Admiral, tell me everything about this battle. Koreth took a deep breath. Your Majesty, the humans fight like nothing I've ever encountered. They have no respect for proper military hierarchy. Their soldiers make jokes during combat. They volunteer for missions that should terrify them. But how did they win? Because they're not afraid to die. But more importantly, they're not afraid to try impossible things. When we surrounded one of their ships, instead of surrendering, the captain asked his crew to vote on which type of impossible escape attempt they wanted to try. And they voted to ram straight through our formation while singing. It worked. Emperor Valdris sat heavily on his throne. What do our intelligence files say about their planet? That's where it gets disturbing, Your Majesty. Earth is what they call a death world. The entire planet seems designed to kill its inhabitants. Poisonous creatures, extreme weather, natural disasters, diseases. Most species would have gone extinct there. But humans survived. More than survived, sire. They thrived. They turned survival into entertainment. They have something called extreme sports, where they deliberately put themselves in mortal danger for fun. Fun? Yes, sire. They jump off cliffs with fabric wings. They surf on ocean waves during storms. They climb mountains in freezing weather, just to say they did it. Valdris felt a chill run through his body. It gets worse, Your Majesty. After the battle, they invited our survivors to something called a barbecue, to celebrate. Celebrate what? The battle itself. Not their victory, but the fact that they got to fight at all. They thanked our soldiers for a good time and asked if we wanted to do it again sometime. The throne room fell silent, except for the distant hum of the palace's systems. Sir, Koreth continued, there's something else. Our captured officers report that the humans are asking detailed questions about our technology. Not to steal it, but to understand it. They want to know how we build our ships, how our weapons work, how our society is organized. Why? Because they find us interesting, Your Majesty. They're not angry about the invasion. They're curious about us. 1. They're curious about us. General Thaxon stepped forward. Sire, we intercepted a human transmission that might be relevant. Show me. A holographic display showed Dr. Sarah Chen, the same human who had first responded to their ultimatum. She was speaking to what appeared to be a galactic news network. The Zephyrian Empire made a simple mistake. Dr. Chen was saying. They assumed that because we're technologically primitive, we must also be primitive in our thinking. But humans have been dealing with impossible odds for our entire evolutionary history. We don't see overwhelming force as a reason to surrender. We see it as an interesting challenge. The interviewer, a being from another species, asked, "But surely, you must fear such a powerful empire?" Dr. Chen smiled. "Fear them? We're fascinated by them. They've built an empire spanning thousands of worlds through intimidation alone. That's actually quite impressive. We'd love to learn from them." Learn from them? Absolutely. They're obviously good at large-scale organization and logistics. Their ships are beautiful. Endless. Their ships are beautiful. Their ships are beautiful, even if they're not very practical in a real fight. And they've managed to maintain order across vast distances. There's a lot we could learn from each other. End of quote. End of quote. The transmission ended, leaving the throne room in stunned silence. "She wants to learn from us?" Emperor Valdris whispered. "Your Majesty," Kareth said carefully. "I think we may have found the first species in the galaxy that's not afraid of us, because they don't think of us as enemies. They think of us as potential friends." Before the Emperor could respond, his communications officer rushed into the throne room. "Your Majesty, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's addressed to you personally. Put it through." The holographic display flickered to life, showing a middle-aged human male in simple civilian clothes. He sat at what appeared to be a kitchen table, with family photos visible in the background. "Emperor Valdris, my name is President Martinez of Earth. I hope this message finds you well." The casual, friendly tone caught everyone off guard. "I wanted to personally apologize for the misunderstanding that led to recent hostilities. It's clear that our species have very different ways of handling disagreements. We'd like to propose a different approach." "What approach?" Valdris found himself asking the recording. As if anticipating the question, President Martinez continued. "We'd like to invite a delegation from your empire to visit Earth. Not as conquerors or subjects, but as guests. We think you'd find our planet interesting, and we're certainly fascinated by your civilization." "Is this a trap?" General Thaxon whispered. President Martinez smiled as if he'd heard the question. "I know this might seem suspicious, but let me explain something about human nature. We collect things that interest us. Art, knowledge, music, stories, friends. Your empire interests us greatly. We'd consider it an honor to add Zephyrian culture to our collection of galactic knowledge. Furthermore," the president continued, "we'd like to propose establishing what we call a cultural exchange program. Some of our people would visit your worlds to learn about your society, while some of your people could visit ours. We think both civilizations could benefit from sharing knowledge and perspectives." The Emperor looked around the room at his advisors. They all seemed as confused as he felt. "There's one more thing," President Martinez said. "We've been thinking about your empire's expansion methods. Intimidation is effective, but it requires constant military presence to maintain order. We'd like to suggest an alternative approach that might be more efficient. Cooperation. Cooperation. Think about it, Your Majesty. Instead of forcing species to submit through fear, what if you invited them to join voluntarily, offer them the benefits of imperial technology and protection in exchange for their unique knowledge and resources? Make membership in your empire something species aspire to rather than something they fear." President Martinez stood up from his table. "We humans have a saying, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. It means people respond better to kindness than to threats. In conclusion, Emperor Valdris, we extend an open invitation to your people. Come visit us. Learn about us. Let us learn about you. We think you'll find that making friends is more rewarding than making subjects." The transmission ended. Emperor Valdris sat in stunned silence for several minutes. Finally, he turned to Admiral Koreth. "Admiral, in your professional opinion, is this some kind of elaborate trap Kareth thought carefully. Your Majesty, based on everything I've observed about humans, I believe they mean exactly what they say. They're genuinely interested in being our friends. And you think this could work? This cooperation approach? Sire, our current method requires us to maintain military fleets across thousands of systems to keep order through fear. But if species actually wanted to be part of our empire, we could redirect those military resources toward exploration and development. General Thaxon finished. The efficiency gains would be enormous. Emperor Valdris made his decision. Prepare my personal ship. I'm going to Earth. Your Majesty. Is that wise? Admiral, we just learned that humans do dangerous things for fun, and they somehow turned that into a successful civilization. Maybe it's time we learn to take some risks too. 3 weeks later, Emperor Valdris found himself sitting in President Martinez's kitchen, drinking something called coffee, and listening to human children play in the backyard. This is not what I expected from a diplomatic meeting, he confessed. President Martinez laughed. Most human business gets done over meals, Your Majesty. We find that people negotiate better when they're comfortable and well-fed. And this works? Well, we haven't had a galactic war yet, so I'd say it's working pretty well. Outside, Valdris could hear Zephyrian and human children playing together, their laughter mixing in the afternoon air. President Martinez, he said slowly, I think your species might have just conquered our empire after all. How so? You've made us want to be more like you. That's a far more effective conquest than any military invasion. Martinez smiled. Welcome to the human approach to galactic diplomacy, Your Majesty. We call it aggressive friendship. Aggressive friendship? We befriend people so enthusiastically that resistance becomes futile. Emperor Valdris found himself laughing for the first time in centuries. Outside, human and Zephyrian children continued to play, completely unaware that they were participating in the most successful first contact in galactic history.